Hammond Hall was built, it was a bit of a library. It had a film theater there and everything, and an auditorium and a stage. And the mill threw a Christmas party there every year, and the kid from every employee got something for Christmas. And
anything in particular, probably the weekly event, basically as it was at the old Hammond Hall. They used to have a boxing match, maybe the odd wrestling match. We used to go up there to play some recreational basketball, volleyball, that sort of thing. But
they had badminton every Saturday there in the hall. And the other thing was they put a library there in the hall, and we could go up and get books.
I had memories. We had a big Hammond Hall a couple of blocks away, and I went there to the library, and I'd go there with a stack of books and come back with a stack of books. And
Port Hammond had the best New Year's Eve dance in the Fraser Valley. It was the event of the year, as far as I can remember.
And they would have dances there, famous dances. You waited until you were at least 13 years old to go to a dance. Then you put on your best lipstick and off you went.
There was a sense of community, and it's still there. That Hammond Neighbors, or whatever it's called, the Facebook site, that sort of thing, it keeps it's a community together. What happens to one happens to everybody.
A great little community, and it had all the things we needed. A community center and everything was needed. It was right there. You didn't have to go far. I don't know. I liked the train. I liked the mill. I just liked it. Yeah, it was a good town.
The quiet ruralness to it. We're in the city, so to speak, but we're away from the city, and it has that very pleasant community living as it was then, and it still really is now. It's just a few more people, that's the only difference.
Yeah. The character of it and the friendliness of the people. Like, I grew up there, and then Dave and I lived there for about 7 years after we got married. We were so comfortable. I could walk a block and visit a neighbor with children, and it was just very friendly, or family friendly.
What I would say about it, it was a lovely little town that you knew most of the people.
Like I say, the camaraderie, that community spirit to go back now and look at, things haven't changed, you know, they're still in old houses, my old house is still alive.
Just the people down there, the character of the community. I've always been interested in historical things, so that was...
Well, I think basically just the historic nature of it, just the ambience, I guess you want to call it that, of the... I just like the way it is. It has this kind of, almost this cluster of old houses. There's a lot of old houses in Maple Ridge, but I think they're kind of spread around. And here you have this historic neighborhood, this cluster, which to me is kind of like a little jewel in Maple Ridge's crown, if you want to put it that way.
Sorry. Just this last weekend, we had an event in Hammond that somebody suggested on Facebook, and everybody said, hey, great idea. So we just threw out a press release and put a post up, and suddenly a bunch of people were putting free stuff out with a little free sign. It was called Hammond Treasure Days. And then I would bump into people, and I had something to talk about. So that's the confluence of online interactions with people and physical interactions.
Why would you do that?
I find there's a real sense of community there. I moved from North Vancouver with my husband and my two young sons. They were 2 and 4 at the time. People seem to be willing to talk with one another, say hello, ask how one another's doing. There seems to be a willingness to sort of communicate with one another, and you know, just that nod, a wave, a hello, a smile, even type of thing.
Honestly, I think when I first got married, we bought our first house. It was a brand new subdivision and bought a house there. At that time, it was great. Young families, they all went to the same elementary school, which is now closed. And then where we live now, because I'm near Maple Ridge Golf Course, I'm on a dead-end street. It's very quiet. I love it. My neighbors are great. We all watch out for each other. If a strange car comes down the road, you know you're it's a strange car. It's that kind of neighborhood. And it is somewhat quiet. There is more traffic, of course, because of the bridge, but when I'm walking my dog, there's certain areas I still feel safe.
What struck me about Hammond and charmed me with it initially was I felt that it was, for lack of a better term, it was sort of semi-rural. It's not farmland, but it's not a suburban traditional subdivision. It lies somewhere in between. You know, without the open ditches, it would be very different. If we lose those ditches, I don't know where we're going to put all the water, so I'm in support of keeping those. I like that Hammond has a feeling of sort of being a little lighter on the land. It hasn't been completely graded flat.
Right now, for me, what makes Hammond a really special place is that we have a really connected community, a really friendly and positive and connected community. And I've never lived anywhere that had that before. So I take a great deal of pleasure out of the sense of the way that Hammond people are together as a community, the people themselves.
To me, it feels like an old-fashioned small town, and it was a town laid out in the 20s. And that's what attracted me. We like to sit on our front porch, and we do that a lot in the summer. It's just so much fun to watch the people. It's a very alive and engaged place.
I really was so upset to move out of Hammond. We were still in Maple Ridge. And my next neighborhood didn't have that neighborhood feel. And most of them drove into their garage, lived their life, got back in their cars, and we saw a car leave the garage. And 9 hours later, a car would come back into a garage, and we didn't meet them. And Hammond's not designed like that. So you get to meet your neighbors, and that's what I want. That's what I want to encourage. That's what I want to keep. I think those who initially set up the Hammond Neighbors Facebook page and website, they nailed it. It's neighbors, you know, the family beyond family.
There's a lot of single-family houses down there. There's a couple of apartment buildings that sort of fit in with the area. They're not too high. You know, 6 stories, I don't know if it would work in there. It would sort of stand out. 3, 4 stories may possibly, depending on the design of the building, because we want to keep with the character of the community.
Well, I feel you have this historic area with a lot of historic houses. So what do? You tear down the houses to build. I wouldn't want to see anything higher than 3 stories. Some of the apartments that are there now are 3 stories, and when they built those apartments, I immediately went around and took pictures of the old houses thinking they would be gone by now. I'm glad that they haven't disappeared.
Well, Hammond is ready-made for increased density. It's got all the services right there. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and there's a great opportunity to preserve the heritage and the character of the existing houses.
I would love to see a family townhouse development in that area, even to the point of the street on either end being strictly for that townhouse development. I don't think we have enough affordable family townhouse type development in the area.
I think in order to keep Hammond viable and for Hammond to carry its fair share of Maple Ridge's growth, certainly we have to have some increased density, and I'm in support of, I guess, what I would call some judicious increase in density, buildings that incorporate some heritage or historical cues in them and generally try to fit in with what's there rather than just ignore what's there with a sort of an assumption that, well, it will be gone someday anyway.
I think 3 to 4 stories could be doable if it was sensitive to the aesthetic of the neighborhood. I also think that density shouldn't, like, the building shouldn't swallow the entire lots. That one of the charms of Hammond is the gardens and you know, you walk around Hammond and look at the cute houses and the cute gardens and that. So I'd like to see density, but with some reservation made so that the lots have some landscaped areas, garden areas, that sort of thing.
But I am more concerned in how the densification happens. The buildings have to be built, in my opinion, so that they foster a sense of community. They are not just warehouses for families, but they become part of the community. Their architecture fosters community among the residents of the building and with the rest of the community.
Along, again, Maple Crescent Corridor, I'd love to see some commercial residential combinations, maybe 3 or 4 stories high, not much higher than 3. Perhaps concrete build with wood build over top of it, maybe all wood build, tying in with the feeling. I think we can look to Fort Langley for ideas of how to keep history and develop businesses along major routes like Maple Crescent and so on.